families, creating a lifetime of memories. Sadly, some families are denied these important moments due to the sad practice of alienation. These are families divided.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to tonight's episode of Families Divided TV. Tonight, Chris Smith is going to give a presentation that aims to shed light on the often overlooked intersection between parental alienation and narcissistic abuse in family dynamics. It's going to explore how narcissistic traits in one parent can lead to the manipulation and alienation of the other parent, using the child as a tool of control and punishment. Those viewing will gain a deeper understanding of the signs of parental alienation, the impact on both the targeted parent and the child, and the legal and therapeutic interventions available to combat this form of abuse. The presentation tonight will also provide practical strategies for prevention and healing, empowering effective parents, and safeguards the well-being of the child. This is a great episode, and I'm sure you're going to get a lot out of it. We're going to be right back with Chris Smith right after this important message.
Divorce and co-parenting are a major life interruption for families, especially the kids, but also for parents and grandparents. And it's even worse in blame-filled, high-conflict cases. When parents engage in alienation by turning the kids against the other parent or grandparents, kids suffer. They're denied the opportunity to build the 4 big skills necessary for future resilience. New Ways for Families online class can help. Parents learn to use our popular BIF and EAR skills to calm the conflict and stop the hostile emails and texts. And we even have a class for kids and parents to learn together. Research shows a 75% improvement in joint parental decision-making after this course is taken, plus overall improvements for kids' well-being. Don't wait to make this affordable investment in your children's future and improve your well-being too. Start learning new ways for your family today at conflictplaybook.com.
Hi, my name is Chris Smith, and I appreciate the opportunity to talk a little bit today about an issue that I think within my law practice we're seeing more and more discussion about, and that's the subject of narcissism. And specifically, I felt like that we were seeing the issue arise in cases in which parental alienation was a discussion point, an issue in the case, and something that we had to deal with throughout the litigation, whether it be, true parental alienation or alienating activities or things of that nature. And it seemed that we were seeing more issues that were corresponding with certain personality issues within the alienating party. And that led to the conversation that I want to have today, specific to how parental alienation presents as a symptom of a narcissist's personality disorder. And so I want to talk specifically about, what narcissism is and how it impacts issues of alienation, specific to divorce litigation and custody litigation, and then kind of what some things we might be able to do to protect against the issue as we enter into that litigation. So jumping right in, as we typically do, as anyone who watches Families Divided knows, parental alienation is the phenomenon of a child rejecting the target parent for no apparent reason. And that's the summary that I like to use. And there's no justification to it. And so we start looking then at sources of the alienation, and that leads us to a parental alienation issue within a case. And we start looking at whether or not the alienating parent is responsible for this behavior. And alienating parent is premature at that point. We're talking about the parent that the child is clinging to and is running to, as opposed to the target parent that the child is rejecting. Is that parent responsible? It's a manipulation tactic, and it can stem from various underlying causes and issues, as many of us who have dealt with it know. But a lot of what I want to talk about today comes from the fact that as clients enter in my office and they want to talk about their divorce, or they want to talk about the reasoning behind their separation, or the issues that they're having with the co-parent in their case, the term narcissism gets thrown around a lot, to the point that we ultimately in our office had to start defining it, identifying it. We've written on the topic on our website, because it became such a prevalent term that you started hearing it in most cases. I think the term gets thrown around. And I think it's a fair issue that it has become as prevalent as it has, because I think that societally we're seeing more opportunity to demonstrate narcissistic behavior. Social media just has created a cesspool of narcissistic behavior online that I think is creeping over into other areas of life. And in a marriage in which you're married to a narcissist, it is near impossible to remain married to that person without just succumbing to some very toxic behaviors and a very toxic environment that really is emotional abuse in the end once you really nail it down. So when you have children with a narcissist, let's start there. You need to be aware of what is going to happen once you enter into a divorce setting, and be prepared for that, be educated about it. First of all, what is narcissism? I think that it's critical that we understand that it's a personality trait. It's a characteristic. It's a personality trait just like any other. It is defined within the DSM. It is diagnosable. It is something that you can point to, and you can look at behavioral traits and say that that person is demonstrating narcissistic behavior. And then you can take it further, and ultimately a professional can diagnose that person with narcissism. I think that in summary, it's a gross overestimation of one's importance, their abilities, their beauty, all of the things that one looks at in terms of the self. You have this mindset that you're unique and you're absolutely special, and that you are essentially a VIP in life, and that you want the attention and the approval of people who are external to you. You need that praise. You need that. That is fuel to your life. And if you don't have it, you're looking for a source somewhere. And a true narcissist is always looking for a source of that praise and that admiration. The traits specific to narcissism can present differently, and so the professional community has identified some various types of narcissism that I think are important in this conversation, and important as we look at divorcing that person. So once you're into the position of whether they have left you, whether you are deciding that it's time to leave them, it doesn't matter. Narcissists divorce people all the time to go look for new supply and new sources of admiration because they're not getting what they need in that marriage. And then people who are married to narcissists will ultimately reach a point that they have to draw a line in the sand. And whether they leave or whether the narcissist leaves because they don't like the line, it doesn't really matter. You're going through a divorce with a narcissist, so you need to understand what that's going to mean. Types of narcissism are going to present. First of all, grandiose narcissism. This is what we have come to most of us understand as narcissistic behavior. You are superior in mind, and you have a need for admiration. You are very arrogant and entitled, and you have a tendency to exploit others. That's grandiose narcissism. These are people who exaggerate their achievements and have a tendency to belittle others just because they're just not as good as you. Vulnerable narcissism is the second. Vulnerable narcissism involves feelings of insecurity, sensitivity, criticism, or sensitivity to criticism, and a fragile self-esteem. Some might look at a vulnerable narcissist and not see a narcissist, but there is a narcissist in there that is going to present in ways that when you present at times when you least expect it, and present in ways that you may not anticipate. They need constant validation. They need constant admiration and reassurance from other people in their life. And they hide behind a facade. But they're also in some ways victims. And these are people who they are superior in their mind. Therefore, if they're not getting what they need or expect to get, they're going to be a victim in the situation. And so this is a vulnerable narcissist. This is someone who, you need to be aware of, that when they're constantly a victim and they're never given everything they need, and they are always blaming others for the issues that are going on in their life, they are presenting with some narcissistic tendencies and traits. Third, malignant narcissism. This combines certain traits of other personality disorders with some antisocial behavior. There's a total lack of empathy. And these are people who can be manipulative and aggressive and are prone to exploiting others within their narcissism. If you're aware of someone being a malignant narcissist, then you've got to be careful of sociopathic and psychological issues that are going to present in ways that are potentially violent. And so be careful with the malignant narcissist because they really have a problem with ethical norms and expected behavior. There are other types of narcissists. There's communal narcissism, in which someone has an inflated sense of importance based on their selflessness and their altruism. And you may see this person in church, they're always involved. You may see this person volunteering, and they're doing it because they need that admiration. They're not doing it because they want to do good. They're doing it because they know that that's their way of getting the supply and the admiration that they need. That's a communal narcissist. A covert narcissist is someone who is more subtle. These are going to be more introverted characters, and they're going to appear shy and modest. But in the end, they are hiding an entitlement and a superiority complex, and they are willing to manipulate through passive aggressive behaviors. They play the victim, and they garner sympathy and attention. There are, as I said, other types. Cerebral narcissism. This guy is the smartest guy. He's the smartest guy at every table. He knows the answer to every question. And if you say that, you understand something, he's going to say he understands it better. So that's a cerebral narcissist. Somatic narcissism is based on one's beauty. You see the Instagram models all the time that are posing and that are, those are people who are getting their admiration based on their appearance and their looks. And so those are some types of narcissism. What I want to talk about, and what we're really conscientious of as it relates to this conversation, are going to be the grandiose narcissists. It's going to be the vulnerable narcissists. It's going to be the covert narcissists. Those are three types that you really need to be aware of as it relates to a custody case. Now, need to be aware of all of them and understand that if you're dealing with someone, any of these traits and any of these tendencies can present at any point with anyone who is narcissistic. But if they lean towards one type or another, we need to be aware of that and understand where the buttons get pushed. And what we're looking for are triggers. As we talk about parental alienation, as we talk about its impact on narcissism, if it's not a hard jump intellectually to get to the point where a narcissist alienates. Because if you think about a narcissist as someone who is just looking for admiration and they need that supply and they're looking for it anywhere they can get it. And they were getting it from you as the spouse at one point. And now that you're not in the picture, maybe you've moved out of the home, they've moved out of the home, you're not there to provide that admiration on a daily basis. If they are not dating someone else already and haven't moved on to their next source of supply in some way, then where are they going to get the supply that they need as a narcissist to get that admiration? A lot of it's going to be in the kids. And there's a tendency there to say, okay, well, if I'm not going to be getting it from my spouse, I'm not out dating, but I need something. They're going to go somewhere and get it. And a lot of times it's in the kids. And so when we're talking about parental alienation and we're talking about the manipulation of a child to reject another parent, we're talking about issues of denigration, interference, false allegations, and the mechanism of alienation is similar to every other situation in which we see parental alienation. The mechanisms are similar, but the root cause might be different in that this is a person who needs that admiration and they're getting it from their kids. And if you can identify that, then it may present an opportunity for you to try to use the professionals in the case to identify some of these sources. In litigation, it's never easy to prove up a source of parental alienation, no matter what anyone says. It's a very complicated issue. But one of the questions that always gets asked is why? Why would someone do that? Why would this parent try to alienate that parent? They had a great relationship. They were the model couple when they were together. Why would they all of a sudden then need to alienate the children from he or she? And the answer might be that they need the supply that the children are providing, or they need the attention that they're getting from the courts as a result of the allegations that are being made. They need the approval, and they need to play the victim. And so as we look at parental alienation from the perspective of this is the end game to have a child who is alienated from the other parent so that they have their exclusive attention, the why can be based on the fact that this is a narcissistic parent. And that has always been the case, and it will continue to be the case. And I'm just anecdotally, I don't think you see parental alienation as much with a narcissistic parent who has moved on to a new relationship. They're using the new relationship as supply. It's a coping mechanism. It's got their attention. What you do see is neglect of the kids. And so if the party who is the narcissist has moved on, count your blessings as the other parent, because they're not placing their attention on the kids or on you. They're placing it on this new party, and they're getting their supply that way. But if they don't have that source of supply there, they're going to look to elsewhere, and they're going to look at you. They need attention from you. They may hoover back and say that, okay, well, I'm not getting the attention I thought I was going to get because I've split up. They may want to come back and try to reestablish and reconcile that relationship as a source of supply, or they might use the kids and try to turn the kids against you so the kids are exclusively theirs. Narcissism as a source of parental alienation is pretty simple in terms of where to look. Is that person entitled? Does that person have an entitlement mentality where they believe that there is nothing they've ever done that is a mistake? They've never made a true mistake. They may have made the wrong choice, but they've never made a mistake. Or they are in a VIP mentality where they should always be at the front of the line. They should never have to wait. They should always get special treatment. If there's someone like that, then they have an entitlement mentality, which they may apply then to a custody case, that I should receive custody because I am God's gift to parenting, and I should have full custody of the kids because I am entitled to that, and my position is who I am. And so an entitlement mentality will present sometimes as parental alienation. There's a complete lack of empathy in most narcissists. Most narcissists have no ability to put themselves into the shoes of the other party and treat that party as they would want to be treated. And so because of that, they don't have the ability to empathize with you as the other parent, or even as with the children. And this is where you see the parental alienation as a form of abuse come into play a lot, is with parents who have no empathetic relationship with their kids. They don't look at their kids and say, well, I know they want a relationship with mom or dad, and so I'm going to make sure they have that. Even if mom and dad are just completely bankrupt morally, ethically, they're not a good spouse, I'm going to make sure the kids have that relationship because the kids need that relationship. They don't have the ability to do that. They don't have the ability to relate in such a way that allows them to say, okay, it may not be the best thing for me to be in this relationship with that person, but my children need the relationship with their parent. And so because they have that lack of empathy, they're more willing to manipulate and try to exploit the relationship in such a way that puts them at the center of that relationship, which leads to the need for admiration. And when you see parental alienation in a lot of context, you're going to see a parent who the children believe is the better parent. They believe that parent is their source of comfort. They believe that parent is their only refuge from the alleged abuse or from the alleged, just from the world. And they are willing to cling to that parent in a way that puts that parent at the center of their life, which is exactly where a narcissist wants to be at the end of the day. If they're not the center of everything they're doing, they're not going to be happy. And so if you have a situation where your spouse has been demonstrating narcissistic tendencies, you have seen that your spouse is truly a narcissist. And we get a lot in cases I will admit I've done it. I know other attorneys have done it. I know guardian ad litems and a lot of judges even get wrapped around the axle on this issue of, well, has there ever been a diagnosis? Has there been a diagnosis of narcissistic personality disorder? Has there been a diagnosis of any kind of disorder? Well, it's very rare to see a diagnosis in any case, because it's very rare for a narcissist to take the initiative before the divorce is filed to go to an expert, a psychologist, a psychiatrist, a doctor, and disclose in any truthful manner in such a way that would allow for a diagnosis of narcissistic personality disorder. So you're not probably going to have a diagnosis of this disorder when you start your divorce case. But don't get wrapped around the axle over that issue. That's not the issue that we need to be most concerned about in terms of, do we see this type of behavior? I'll tell you, if you allow for enough time to pass between the filing of the divorce or the filing of, or the custody order having been entered, and you allow for time to pass, narcissistic traits come to light in a way that are somewhat unique, I think, in this context. It's hard for a narcissist to hide um, their behavior. Now, there are those who do. Covert narcissists, we talked about the fact that sometimes they're hiding what they're doing, but your grandiose narcissist, your malignant narcissist, your narcissist who really need to be the center of attention, they're going to have a hard time hiding their behavior. And when they are now single, they're going to put it front and center. And there's not going to be a lot of question as to how their behavior is. You just got to get through the process in such a way that you're not alienated and you maintain a good relationship with your children. When you have a parent on the other side who is a narcissist and you're comfortable calling them that, first of all, as you progress through your divorce case, don't call them a narcissist in the divorce. There's no reason to do that. It's only going to incite them. And if you've ever called them such in the marriage, you know that the response is never good. So why would you even make it an issue specific in a direct way? It needs to be handled by way of experts in terms of psychologists, in terms of guardian ad litems, in terms of those who have an objective ability to look at the evidence. Now, if you have someone who is there objectively, then you need to make sure then that you have presented the evidence in such a way that they can review it and can apply what they know about narcissism, and make sure to educate them. If you need to educate them on what it is, make sure you educate them on what it is. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. If you're dealing with someone in this setting that does not have a source of supply elsewhere, and I've talked about the fact that if you have a ex-spouse who has moved on, they've got a new boyfriend, they've got a new girlfriend, and they are putting their attention on that person, it helps in this context because they are getting that admiration and they're getting that validation from a source, so they're not looking for it from the kids or from you. Try to take advantage of that as you can and get this case done. Move the case forward. Get it moved on. I think there's a growing school of thought within certain corners of the divorce sphere, especially for men, to get your case moving and move it and be done with it. And get it off the table, finalize it as quick as you can and move on. Because the longer it simmers, the more opportunity for the other party to come in and make allegations, the more opportunity for the other party to start to realize they may not be getting what they need or want, and realize that they're going to have to make a play to exploit what you can provide where they can. And so if you can take advantage of an opportunity that while things are good, get it done, do so, because you might save yourself a lot of headaches. As far as saving headaches, here are some tips. Okay, some things that I think are going to be helpful. When you're dealing with a narcissist, there are very few things that you can do to try to prevent that behavior. It's going to happen. And you're going to have to put some boundaries in place to try to make sure that it's not impacting you. And that's really all you can do. They're going to be who they are. You can't really change that, no matter what you do. And so you just have to put some protections in place. And so here's what I would suggest. Maintain open communication with your children. There are situations where that is made very difficult by the other side. I've had plenty of cases where the other side takes the child, secrets the child away. Mom or dad doesn't know where they're at, and they don't have the relationship with the child like they want. There's no communication. And so in that period of time, parents have the opportunity to try to divide and distance the child from the other parent, and they take advantage of that. A lot of them do it. So if you can maintain open communication with your kids, the chances of them rejecting you are going to go down. Now, that's not to say it doesn't happen, but if you can maintain consistent communication with your children, make sure to do so. And what we're talking about there is not just communication. We're not just talking about making sure that you've talked to them about the latest Disney movie or that you've talked to them about their baseball game. You're really communicating in such a way where trust is maintained, it's being developed. There's a sense of freedom in terms of the communication. Kids are free to communicate with you. You don't want to overshare about your case, but they need to know at all times that they have a safe place in you to be able to communicate as they see fit. And so if you can maintain that communication, that's going to be critical. And whatever you do, be consistent. If you are inconsistent in terms of communication, it's going to hurt. And so if you have a child who wants to talk to you and you're not there for them to talk to, you've just opened the door for their emotional reaction to you to change. So if they want to be there and they want to communicate and they are saying they miss you, don't neglect that, and make sure that you are showing up for them unconditionally. Document, document, document. I've said this in numerous settings. You can't document enough if you're trying to protect yourself in a divorce case. There are people who have said you're overdoing it in terms of certain situations. Those are few and far between. Most attorneys who know what they're doing are going to appreciate documentation. They can always tell you there's nothing we can do with that. That's kind of a waste. But if you don't have the documentation for them to be able to utilize, then what's the point? So if you have it, if you have the opportunity, do it. Keep detailed records, interactions, communications, text messages. Never delete a text message. Visitation schedules, how they've shown up, your involvement financially, what you need to do to maintain the financial records, whatever you need to do. Document anything concerning your kids, the other parent's behavior, and the other parent's communication. And so if you need a third-party app such as Our Family Wizard, use it, take advantage of it. But frankly, you can text messages, Google if you want. You can pretty much get all the data that you're going to want from Google as far as location services, any of that kind of stuff. So just don't hesitate to document. I recommend that most parents who are afraid that they could be the target of an alienating parent turn on all of their tracking options. Google has the ability, if you turn it on right, Google can keep track of everywhere you're going, everywhere you've been, everywhere you are, everywhere you are. And so if you want to protect yourself, it's not going to hurt for you to track everything you do. If you're not doing anything wrong, there's nothing to be concerned about. So turn on those tracking services so that you can say, look, I was at the drop-off. I was here. The other hack that I have seen and I recommend is take a photo everywhere you go where you want to make sure it's clear you were there. Take a selfie. With that selfie, you can take the EXIF data off that and make sure that you can prove I was at that place at that time, taking that photo. And they can't question you as far as you weren't there, you were somewhere you shouldn't be, any of that kind of thing. If you're dealing with a narcissistic parent, seek legal guidance. Understand, and I'll be the first one to say, when I was a younger attorney, I had a lot of clients come in and go, "Well, have you ever worked with a narcissist?" And I thought I had, and I thought that I knew what I was doing with it when it comes to narcissism. It took me some real work to try to get in and truly understand it and understand what you're dealing with and how it presents. And so I do recommend work with an attorney who appreciates the issue, understands the issue, and is willing to listen to you and is willing to challenge you. You're going to see if you went to our blog, you're going to see a blog post in which we posted, is your spouse presenting as a narcissist, or are they just selfish? Is it narcissism, or is it just selfishness? There is a difference, and understanding that is important, I think, because you really do need to understand what you're dealing with here. And that goes to the education issue. Educate yourself, educate others, make sure you understand. If you think at all that you're dealing with a narcissist, make sure to educate yourself. On that note, I'll recommend a couple of books. One, you can't go wrong with the Dummy series, Narcissism for Dummies. It's an excellent resource, in my opinion, for a broad view of what narcissism is, how it presents, and some of the things that you're going to need to know about the issue. It was written by Dr. Laura Smith. She's a clinical psychologist. So check it out. That's an easy resource. The other resource is a recent book. It's Not You, Identifying and Healing from Narcissistic People, also written by Dr. Ramani Durfasulua, butcher the name. Also a very good book on the topic. And if you are just a layperson looking for some resources on the issue, and you're questioning, is this what I'm dealing with? Do I need some help here? How do I manage this? Those are two resources I think are pretty helpful to educate yourself, and then you can take it from there and go out. Always focus on your children's well-being. This is critical. If you open the door for your ex-spouse to take advantage of something, they're going to do it. A narcissist is always going to look for an opportunity to exploit and to take advantage, especially if they're triggered, especially if they're just reaching a point where they have a hard heart and they're callous and they really don't care about you at all, or your kids. They are exclusively concerned about themselves. They're going to try to take advantage of that. So you counter that by making sure that you're doing just the opposite, that you're very empathetic with your children's needs, and you're putting the children first as it relates to your time, as it relates to your money, as it relates to your attention, and make sure that you're there for them. When they're going through a divorce, it's a very difficult time for everybody. But those kids didn't ask for it. They aren't the reason that this divorce is happening. And anybody that has ever studied the issue understands that how important it is to make sure they know that that's the case, that they aren't the reason, and that their parents are still going to be there for them when this is over with. And so make sure that you put them in a place where they understand that. Show up to things. Don't pawn them off. Make sure to put them in a place where they understand that they're loved and appreciated, and that you're there for them. Set boundaries. Very important to understand that you're going to have to create some boundaries that have never been there before in your relationship. And as you're dealing with a narcissist through the divorce process, you have to set those boundaries early, and you may have to set them often, and you may have to reestablish them. And as if you are a victim of narcissistic abuse, you might be someone who is, you relapse and you go back to that person whenever they start hoovering and they start trying to get you back. You go back, you relapse, then it gets right back where it was, even worse. So you got to go back through the process. You got to reestablish boundaries at times. And so don't hesitate to do that. The Henry Cloud book on boundaries is always a good one. They've got boundaries in marriage as well, and I recommend that as well as a resource. Understand that divorce cases are hard. When they're easy, they're hard. Parental alienation cases are amplified 10 times that. They're protracted, they're emotionally draining, they're expensive. There are no easy ways to get through an alienation case. So be patient and do not hurt yourself in the process. You need to show up and you need to be persistent in terms of your positive approach to what you're trying to do here. And don't lose sight of the fact that in the end, this case will be done. There will be an ending to this. And what you want to try to do is make sure that you have met your hierarchy of needs, as I would refer to it, in terms of you're getting a relationship with your kids that you're happy with. That's at the top. Okay. And then the rest of it goes from there. And so you need to make sure that you approach your case with that in mind. Narcissism is about power and control at its core, and power and control in terms of making sure that the source of supply, which is the victim spouse, is always going to do what the narcissist needs, and that is always going to put them at the top of the pedestal and treat them as such. If you, as the victim spouse, start to push back on that, and you start to put boundaries in place, and you start to create some division, and you move on, and you are no longer providing the supply that party needs, they're going to go looking for it in some way. And so be very careful. If you are going through a divorce with a narcissistic ex, that you are mindful, that you are protecting yourself, that you're documenting, that you understand going into it that this is an issue that you need to consider, that you play your cards in such a way that looks for an end game, which is the relationship with your kids that you want, and understand that sometimes you may have to sacrifice the sofa, and you may have to give the TV to accommodate, but in the end, you'll get them back in other ways, as long as you have the relationship that you want with your kids. And be smart about it. If you are someone who has been dealing with a narcissist, if you are the victim of abuse, you may need to seek some counseling, and you may need to work on yourself. Self-care is the last thing I want to end with and talk about, in terms of just making sure that you are coming out of the relationship in such a way that you are able to thrive moving out of it. Living in a relationship with a narcissist is a draining and a real emotionally traumatic process, and one in which you have you're at risk of losing yourself for the sake of the narcissistic spouse. And if you have gotten to that place, you need to start gaining back the self in every way that you can, and put yourself in a place where you're able to be there for your kids and show up for your kids as the best version of yourself. If you need help with that, I'm happy to talk to anybody that's needs that help. If we can help in any way in terms of navigating a parental alienation case, I'm happy to talk to anyone that sees this and reaches out. I'm happy to help where we can. And we have offices in Oklahoma, and practice in Oklahoma and Texas. And I'm happy to help anyone in those states, and then help you if you're in another state. We talk to folks all the time about how we might be able to get them to somebody who can help. And so just be careful as you navigate this process with a narcissist parent, because you can really set yourself up for having problems if you don't handle it right. And dealing with it in an educated way is the first step. And so I hope this has been helpful. If we can help in any way, let me know.
On our next episode of Families Divided TV, Dr. Stephen Lindenberg will speak on the importance of treating the alienating parent.